I'm super excited to have the lovely Kylie Paatsch joining us this morning. She's from a company called The Fearless Way. Now, she's a bold optimist who is passionate about inspiring and supporting individuals, businesses, and leaders to awaken to their full potential. Now, as a kid, Kylie was curious and determined from an early age and has spent most of her life exploring how to break down barriers and find better ways of doing things. I love that. She's spent over 20 years in business, leadership, and people development, seeking what success looks like at an individual level, at a company level, and in leadership. Kylie is a certified coach, leader, facilitator, professional speaker, and yoga and meditation teacher. Her work is formulated from the concepts of positive psychology, mindfulness, neuroscience, and keeping things simple. My gosh, we all need to do that, don't we? She's lucky enough to be married to, she says, the most patient man on the planet. Gotta love Wes Marshall, and has two gorgeous, beautiful, identical twins. I couldn't find that word. Identical twins, Liam and Charlie, that inspire her to be her best and do her best in everything she does. Welcome, Kylie Paatsch.
Thank you, Angie Hilton.
Oh, so nice to see you over Zoom. How are you traveling?
Good. Well, we haven't been able to really catch up with COVID, have we? So it's nice to see you.
No, we feel connected through the screen. So tell me, the Fearless Way for you has been a big life change, really, because you've lived a pretty high-flying life through being an executive at Flight Centre. Can you give us a bit of a background to the life before the Fearless Way?
Sure. Well, look, I was in travel for 24 years, and I can't believe it. Makes me sound really old, doesn't it? But I used to thank you. I used to tell people I started when I was 8 when I would do introductions to people. I've been here for a while. I started when I was 8. So, yeah, I worked at Flight Centre for a really long time, and I worked in lots of roles, but I suppose the last couple of years, the role that I had was heading up recruitment, learning development, and senior leadership development. So it's a pretty big role, and it was based out of Brisbane, which meant I travelled a lot. And, whilst I loved my job and I loved the travel opportunities, it was really just starting to become a little bit much for me and just, for Wes and the boys. And we got to a place where we were surviving, not thriving. So I've always been one that I put in 100% to whatever I do. So when I felt like it was just getting a little bit much, I just went, right, this is it. It's time to pull the pin and, create something that'll work for me. And the Fearless Way's probably been circling around for a while. It's something that I have been thinking about. So at the end of last year, I thought, that's it. I'm going to be fearless and I'm going to start my company, which I have.
So how do you describe what the Fearless Way is in a nutshell?
It's a really good question. I almost feel like the answer is a little bit like that segment out of The Castle where the guy says, it's the vibe, Your Honour. The vibe. It took me a little while to articulate because intuitively I sort of knew it in here and I knew it in here, but the best way that I can describe it is the Fearless Way is about helping people break down the barriers that hold them back from potential. And I've, as you mentioned, I've always been a little bit curious, a little bit of a seeker of things. And one of the things that kept circling around for me quite a bit was, what is it that holds me back from being my best self? What holds back the people that work with me or that I lead or even my children? And everything for me came back, it was related in some way, shape or form to fear. So I just so about 12 months ago, I really started to get into the fear thing and explore it a little bit further and work out what it takes to be, live our lives with less fear, because ultimately, we're always going to have fear, but how do you live your life with less fear? So that's how the Fearless Way started. So my mission is just to really break down those barriers and help people, live their best life and fulfill their potential. And I'm really passionate about doing that, particularly for women. I am a feminist. I'm going to own it and say it. I am a feminist, and I'm a big promoter of gender equality and have been in my career and workplace. So I'm really passionate and do a lot of work in that space. And also I do a fair bit in leadership with companies as well, because I really feel that everything rises and falls with leadership. If we have good leadership in schools, if we have good leadership in communities, in businesses, in corporate, in life, we get better outcomes. So I'm really passionate about getting in there and kind of disrupting a few things, I suppose.
That sounds awesome, because every single person, I guess for me as well, like I have the goals that I want to achieve and dreams, and some of them feel like that they're just far too scary. How could I ever do that? So busting out of that fear, like what are some of the first steps that you would take?
Yeah, it's good question. I think the first thing for me is you've got to accept fear, and you've got to accept that it's a part of life. Like it's a natural response, and it's emotion that we have wired in our brains to help protect us. So we're always going to have it. It's a good thing, because it does keep us safe, but sometimes it keeps us too safe. So for me, I believe the first step is just to get to know fear, get to understand fear, and accept that fear is part of life, and don't try and fight it. Like, I think one of the things that I look back now in reflection, I've probably done my whole life has been a fighter. I've tried to fight fear, and last year I just went, I'm going to surrender to this. Fear is there. It is what it is. So just work with it rather than try and fight it. So I think for me, that's certainly the first step. And then once you know your fears, it's about just thinking about where do they come up? How do they come up? How do I tame my fears? Like what are some things I can do to tame my fears? So I talk a lot about and spend a lot of time working with people on building their courage muscle. And one of the easiest things to do is just try something every day that just gets you out of your comfort zone. And I know it's a bit of a cliche, like, when you get out of your comfort zone, life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. But I believe cliches are there for a reason, because they often work. And so it's just sometimes knowing what they are and then just doing little things. It might be, I know when I started the Fearless Way, I was pretty nervous to start posting things, and but it was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And if you go back and look at my posts on Facebook or Instagram, you'll see there's a quote, there's nothing mentioned. Then there was another one. And now I've, as you get into it and you feel a little bit more comfortable, now I'll put what I feel is necessary or will help people, to become more fearless. But it was a little bit of a, coming out of my comfort, stepping stone. So, yeah, there are a couple of things that I would suggest to do.
Yeah. So, but it's that uncomfortable feeling, isn't it? And we're all guilty of wanting to stay in that safe little space that feels nice. But I guess it's the growth that comes with those uncomfortable feelings, and then potentially getting addicted to that feeling of, okay, I know this uncomfortable feeling leads to growth, and I'm going to go to the next level. So it's really, just stepping into it, isn't it, I guess?
It is, and I love the bit where you say you then start to fear, you get addicted to the other feeling on the other side. I know that I've shared this with you before, but a couple of years ago, I decided to have a year off drinking, and I do these things every year where I like to challenge myself. And I thought, right, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to have a year off drinking, and it was, it was bigger than I expected. I knew that it would be tricky, but that was probably when some of the Fearless Way stuff really started to circle around and turn up for me, because I realised I had more fears than I thought I did. So, but every time I did, so, I'd go out and I'd think, okay, well, oh God, people are going to give me a hard time for not drinking. And yeah, some people did, some people didn't. So you kind of worry about that, but you just go, I'm going to feel the fear and do it anyway. But then things would come up like, oh, what if I don't belong? Or what if people don't talk to me? Or what if people don't want to dance with me? Or because I'm sober and they're the drunk ones.
Sober girl.
And all this weird stuff kept coming up. But every time I did it, I felt so much better. And it really boosted my self-esteem and confidence. And at the end of that 12 months, I was like, who would have thought, giving up drinking for a year would have been so empowering?
That's such a commitment too, because I think we're all guilty of trying to just fit in and be accepted and be liked, and it seems like a pretty simple thing. Yeah, I'll just give up drinking, but it's all the social things, because people do have a problem when you say, I don't drink, don't they? What was your experience? What would people say to you?
Oh, it was quite funny at the start. Like, people would say to me, what's wrong with you? Have you got a drinking problem? Which, people that knew me years ago that could have been reasonable thinking that. So I was like, no, I'm okay. And then one of my girlfriends pulled me aside and said, it's okay, you can tell me, like, have you got a terminal illness? Is there something wrong with you? Like, there was a lot of drama attached to it. And a lot of people would say to me, oh God, well, I don't want to hang out with you. You won't be fun. You won't be fun anymore. So it was a really weird experience. And all the things that I was worried about, half of them didn't even, come true. Like, I was really nervous that my friends wouldn't invite me to things after. They still did, which is good.
And did it feel, people often have a couple of drinks to loosen up and just bring out some more personality if they're a little bit shy. Did you feel anything like that you felt more socially awkward?
Yeah, I did. I did feel a little bit more awkward. But, I think one of the things that is part of I'm pretty determined. So if I decide I'm going to do something and I put it out there. So I put it out there to absolutely everybody I knew. So then I was, okay, I'm going to have to do this.
You're accountable.
It was really accountable to it. So that helps. If you're trying to work on overcoming some of your fears, being held accountable to it is definitely a little tip and something that helps. So I was pretty determined to do it, but yes, I felt awkward. And as you know, like you, I do a lot of mindfulness and meditation and breathing. So sometimes I would be out there just standing there breathing and no one else would have any idea, but it's feeling awkward. And even the first time dancing sober when everyone else is drunk is really weird. So I just do it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it is courageous. I mean, they seem like little things, but so you just gave us one example of a technique that you might do when you're feeling that way. So you went into breathing. Like, can you explain a bit more about that and other techniques that people might use as they face their fears?
Yeah, sure. I just love meditation and mindfulness, as I know you do, as well. And it's no secret that this about me. Like, I suffered a little bit of anxiety, and I got into meditation probably about 15 or 20 years ago, and it was certainly a game changer for me. And the thing that I know is that, or know to be true for me, is fear comes from our mind, right? So fear is stimulated in the mind, and what I call false fears, like imagined fears, just have a party in your mind. They keep circling around. So one of the great things about mindfulness and meditation is you can actually strengthen the mind. And for me, mindfulness is both a practice and it is a state of mind. So, and it's not an easy thing to do, but it's not as hard as we think. And I don't know about you, but one of the things that I first thought when I started mindfulness and meditation is that I had to be like, the Dalai Lama, and I could sit there for hours and nothing would enter my brain. But what I realized really quickly, it wasn't about that. It's just about, connecting to breath and connecting to being in that moment, so you can become a little bit, a lot more focused and aware. And oh, wow, as I said, I've been meditating for a long time, and some days my mind is like, but the fact is I'm aware of it, and it just helps me center. And you're not on all the autopilot, because that's one of the things that happens a little bit when it comes to being fearful. If we're not conscious and we're not aware and we're not tuned in, we just become reactive and we go on autopilot. And one of the things that I find with a lot of people that I work with is they are on that autopilot all the time and they're reacting to things. So a big thing is just to be able to, just even if you just connect in with your breath, take a moment, just notice your breath. I say that mindfulness can be designated and integrated. So designated is when you take that time to sit down and to do, a practice for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20, whatever works for you. And then the integrated stuff is just when you're sitting here now, like connecting to my breath. I'm actually being mindful, having a cup of tea, just, feeling the cup, lifting the cup, feeling your mouth, feeling it, the sensations and things going through your mouth and your body. So it's not as hard to do as we think it is. But for me, that is definitely been a big game changer. And I know with the people I work with, it has as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people have a misconception that you're right, that you need to still your mind. But it, as you say, it's as simple as engaging your senses wherever you are, feeling the temperature, feeling your feet on the floor, noticing your breath, all the senses. I think that's a really quick way to go, right, I'm here and now. I'm not in the future worried about the maybes and the what ifs, and I'm not in the past stressing about what happened. So mindfulness absolutely is a game changer. I totally agree. Now, Kylie, say I was a new client and I'm coming to see you.
Yep.
And I'm a middle-aged woman. Am I talking about myself? Okay. I'm a middle-aged woman. I've just come from a stressful career. I'm done with it. COVID makes you think of everything, like reassess everything. So I'm coming to you and I'm saying, I know I want to change, but I don't know where to start. What, how, where? Help me, Kylie. I want to be fearless. What do you say then?
Well, I've actually had a few of those conversations lately. Actually, people have said, I want to be fearless. That's why I like the fearless way.
Yeah.
So, look, I believe the first starting point is, one of the things we do is we study everything else. We study other people, we study other things, and we don't often take the time to study ourselves and connect ourselves. So the first starting point for me with any client that I work with, whether it's a company or it's an individual, is just to really connect to your why, like what is important to you, and work out the things that, what drives you, what is important to you, what do you love to do, what are you passionate about, why do you think you're here? And that's a big question, right? Why do we exist? What do you think your purpose is in life? But there's quite a few questions that you can work through to discover that. And I use a few different tools and a few techniques. I take a little bit of, everybody's stuff and kind of make it my own. But certainly working with, those things and understanding yourself and looking at your strengths, because when you know what you're strong at, when you know what you're motivated to do, when you know what's important to you, when you know what drives you, it's so much easier to fulfill your dreams or your goals. And it also gives you, I don't know what the word is, it gives you a foundation. So it makes it easier to be fearless, because you go, well, I'm going to do this because this is important to me, or no, I'm not going to do that because that's not important to me. There's this little quote that says, when you know your why, you know your way. And I think one of the things that happens to us, why we become so fearful, is that we get a bit lost. We don't really know who we are anymore and what's important to us. So definitely doing a lot of work around that is the first place that I start.
Self-knowledge is powerful, isn't it? I think my husband gets sick of me analysing everything in myself, but I without having done that, like without things like discovering I have ADHD last year and chipping away at the anxiety, where's that coming from? What's the emotion that's triggering that? I wouldn't be functioning very well. But I see the power in what you're talking about. Self-knowledge is just chipping away at learning what makes you tick is so important, isn't it?
It is. And it gives you control and self-control, because a lot of us, and me included, I do this all the time. My kids have started to pick me up on this now, which is hilarious. But we often focus on things that we can't control. So we focus on, what everybody else is doing or what they're saying or what's happening, and we can't control that. And sometimes you can absolutely positively influence it, but the only thing you have control over is yourself. So when you know yourself and get to know yourself, you're in control, and you're in control of you. And that's definitely one of the first, parts of being fearless, is you've got to connect back to you and connect back to what's important to you.
What would you say, Kylie, personally, it has been the biggest fear that you've had to overcome?
Personally, well, I've got two fears. Can I share two with you?
Yeah, go for your life.
So I've always had a fear of heights. Like, since I can remember as a little girl, my auntie and uncle have a holiday house. They still have it actually at Apollo Bay. And I remember they had quite big steps that you had to go up on the outside of the holiday house. And I remember vividly as a little girl just being really petrified and paranoid because I could see down. So I've always been pretty scared of heights. I fainted at the top of the Eiffel Tower because I got so overwhelmed. And part of my personality is, even if I'm scared, I will do it. Like, I am pretty determined, but sometimes I then put myself in these situations where, panic takes over and, I fainted at the top of the Eiffel Tower. But I've always been really determined to at least, maybe not overcome it, but just chip away at it, just make it less powerful, I suppose, for me. Because I know it's an imagined fear, like it really is. It's not a real fear, it's an imagined fear. And so about, 15 years ago, I took a team of leaders that reported to me on a work conference in Bali, and I'd been talking about them, about getting out of their comfort zone and, facing their fears, and that we had to push through some things as a group and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, we went out and there was a bungee jump, and they all said to me, well, you're our leader, you've got to walk your talk. Oh. So I bungee jumped and I did it. My legs have never been, I still remember, I kept thinking, I'm going to fall off because my legs can't walk. Like, I was so shaky. So I walked out to the end and I did it. And I have to say, it was an amazing feeling to have 20 people standing at the bottom cheering you on. So it's kind of that reminder that if you're going to get out of your comfort zone, you got to have the tribe, the support. Yeah. And they did, and I did it, but I will never do it again. I felt like my eyeballs were going to pop out, and and it was not a great sensation, but I did it, and that was the important thing. Wow. But my other big fear was public speaking. So it's kind of a weird thing. Again, I've always loved to speak, and I've always loved to talk, and I always wanted to do it. In fact, I used to practice at home when I was a kid all the time. Thought I was famous, and so I'd always wanted to do it, but I was really petrified of it because I was so worried about what people would think, and that I wouldn't be good enough, and being driven by perfection, that it wouldn't be perfect enough, it wouldn't be right. But again, I still did it. And when I was a general manager for flats in a brand, I was up doing a talk for 140 people, and again, I passed out. I fainted, like I had a panic attack, and just hit the decks, so to speak. Well, I just stopped breathing. You know what it was? It goes back to being in that moment and breathing. Like, I think I just stopped. I got so anxious. I was talking up here. I stopped breathing. And then I remember just thinking, this is not making sense. People don't know what I'm talking about. And just boom.
Oh my gosh, that's quite traumatic. And the fact that so to come back to public speaking after having that experience would have been even more scary.
It was, but what was the key for me is being vulnerable with it. So I was just really honest with our work, and I was honest with the people that reported to me, and just say, hey, look, I actually got a little bit overwhelmed with this, and I might feel a little bit nervous, and I might feel a little bit shaky, and I might feel a little bit anxious, and I might need a cup of water, but I really want to do this. And it's amazing when you show your real self, and you just share what you're feeling. It takes away the fear. So as soon as I would say that to people, I felt authentic, I felt true, I wasn't pretending to be anything I wasn't, and it just started to ease. So after a while, and it's like a muscle, right? You build it. So those things don't happen to me now. In fact, it's what I do for a job. I still get a little bit nervous because I care, but it's not the same. So there's that difference between being nervous and completely in, panic and terror mode. Yeah.
That's an amazing story. So to go from that panic mode, what sort of help did you get to overcome that?
Yeah, I did. So I went and saw a psychologist. So I did a little bit of work with actually one of our psychologists here in Geelong at Mackey's Associates. So it was so good. So we just spoke, and she actually talked to me about mindfulness and becoming present and putting in some techniques that I could have. And one of the things we spoke a lot about was actually just being honest and, being a little bit vulnerable. And there's a time and place for it as well. I mean, if someone's, paying you to speak and you're feeling a bit nervous and you go, I'm really nervous and I'm this and I'm that and whatever, it might not come across as professional, but there are different little techniques that you can put in place. And one of the things we worked with is I feel comfortable if I can share a little bit of myself, because that's part of my authenticity and who I am, and if I get a bit of a laugh. So I just would start, I just started to bring that in. It was kind of like my little security blanket, if you like, but it was a benefit for me and for the people that I was speaking to. So when I'm doing that, if I'm speaking, you now know what I'm doing. When I'm getting a bit of a laugh.
Something you would share at the start of a talk that would make you feel, because I know there's so many people probably listening that have that same fear of public speaking. And yeah, I've never heard anyone say that. Just to share a little bit of something to make them laugh would be perfect. What's something?
Yeah. Just one that comes to mind now is a talk I did late last year. I was a little bit nervous and I thought, if I get my body moving and I share something about myself so I can connect with the group, that will work. So I got out stage and I'm like, hi, I'm the third guest speaker for the day. You probably all had enough and thinking, what is this woman going to do? What's going to happen? Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get you up and we're actually going to move, because I shared with them that I just started doing my yoga training and, whatever. So I got them moving and I was doing squats on stage. Now I felt like an idiot, and I got them doing it. But because I did something that I was sharing something about myself, but I was also doing something that was a bit uncomfortable for me. It's like I just got it out of the room, out of the way. Yeah.
Authentic showed you were real and it got you out of your head and into your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It absolutely, and that's what it does. It gets you out of your head, and it's about it's just about actioning it, isn't it? It's like feel the fear and do it anyway. So just do one little action that's going to help you. And the breathing and stuff definitely helps too. I do breathe now. I don't hold my breath in.
Well, the thing is, you don't actually realize you're holding your breath until something like you faint. So that's really good for people that may have anxiety to hear, because if you're new to anxiety, which I'm sure most people aren't these days, is just slowing down that breathing is it should become second nature to us when we feel those feelings, shouldn't it?
Yeah. And another thing that I do with the public speaking as well is I think about, because it's just your ego, right? You're just caught up in your ego and your own fears. So another thing that I do is I just stop and think, this is not about me. This is about the people that are there. I'm here to serve them. I'm here to, give them what they need. It's not about me. So when I take the focus off me and I make it about the other people that I'm talking to, that helps too. It's almost like you're reframing or flipping your thought process as well.
That's really great. Okay, so Kylie, I've had this midlife career. I don't like crisis. How do we change crisis? What do we call it? Midlife. We need a new word. We'll have to workshop that. Midlife.
We'll have to.
New creation.
Yeah, you just have to detour. I don't know. You ready? We must be ready for a new journey. You're ready for the next stage.
Yes. So we're unpacking that. I'm learning about myself. I'm getting used to that uncomfortable feeling, and I'm taking steps forward. And now I get to my new level. And then what happens from there? You just keep looking. Okay, now I'm used to this feeling. I keep expanding. Is that what you suggest once people get through that initial stage?
Yeah, you just got to keep going. And along the way, and keep coming back. Like, I really feel when you get clear on your purpose and you get clear on your values and what's important to you, and you set some boundaries as well, just keep coming. It's almost like your focal point. You just keep coming back to that, and you will have to, because whenever you go from being comfortable into the uncomfort zone or into something that's new and unfamiliar, you've got to keep remembering, okay, this is what's important to me, this is how I'm going to do this. And it's also really important to have people around you that will support you. So if you do feel a bit wobbly as you move into that new space, just to have people that will encourage you and lift you up and challenge you too, right? Call you on stuff, because I always say with fear, there's two types of fear. There's real fear and imagined fear. And real fear is the fear that we need when we see something that is going to hurt us. And imagined fear is the stuff that we create. So you need, in our minds, like, we make up all these big fantasies about what's going to go wrong and what's going to happen.
Yeah.
What if, the what ifs, yeah. And you need a good you need some friends around you that when you say, oh, what if this interview with Angie's really terrible and it doesn't work out, and you need that person that says to you, well, what if it doesn't? What if you're brilliant? What if you actually go and share stuff? So it's really, and that is a technique I use as well. So I reframe the what ifs quite a bit. What if it is possible? What if I could? What if I'm great? What if I bring my strength to it?
Yeah, so the negative what ifs flip into the positive what ifs. I love that. Actually, I've never heard that. That's awesome. It's a great way. Before we wind up, I wonder, with parenting, fearless parenting, is there any, we're all going through challenges with the kids at home and everything. And yeah, the kids, I think it's mine as well, they're a little bit wobbly themselves, and we want to build up their resilience and give them some strategies. What thoughts on fearless parenting? How does that all work?
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, for me, parenting is a little bit, well, it is leadership, and in actual fact, it's the most important leadership role you'll ever really have. So I probably apply the same philosophy that I do when I work with leaders, which is to make sure that you're conscious. So as a parent, it's really important to be conscious, which goes back to that mindfulness stuff, right? It's about being aware and it's about being focused, because when we create some space for ourselves, just to take 5 minutes or 3 minutes just to center, focus, come into the room, whatever that is for you, it just helps you become aware of what's going on with your kids. So I think that's a really, really important thing to do. The other thing that works for me with parenting that I've been trying, and both my husband and I do, and we call each other out on it, is, and I think it's because I am a coach, is being curious. So really taking a curious and a coaching approach, if you like, with the kids. So we're really big on asking questions and seeking to understand first before we sort of go there. And it's not an easy thing to do, because you just want to go and do that now. So, it might be, I don't know, like yesterday I went out to the backyard and we've got a dog. So the boys have got a job, which is to pick up the dog poo. So I've gone out there and I'm like, seriously, this backyard is horrendous. So I came inside and I wanted to just say, go and do this. But I just said to them, okay, guys, so if you went outside and you had a look around the backyard, what is it that you might notice? What is it that you might see? And as soon as I said it, they're like, yeah, mum. And they got off and, they went outside. And what I found really works in that, with that approach, is they have to own it and they have to take responsibility, and it gets them to think. It gets them to think about owning their own problems. And you're talking about, at the moment with COVID and things going on, kids being really anxious, and, it certainly is a time where there's a lot of uncertainty for them and there's a lot going on. And, one of the things that I really, and Wes does as well, we really try to focus on is getting the boys to see if they can solve their own problems before we solve it for them. So one of our boys was, he's just had a few things at school, which happens, right? Happens in the jungle of the schoolyard, where there's a couple of boys picking on him about a couple of things. And Wes sort of said, well, do you want us to go and speak to the teacher? Do you want us to do that? And I said, well, before we do that, what is it that you think you could do? What have you tried? What have you approached? What things have you you've done? And he was like, yeah, right, you're right, Mum, I will go and try this. And so, but it's hard, because I just wanted to go up there and, probably grab that kid by the collar and, yank him out of the schoolyard, if I'm to be truthful. But we don't empower our kids, and that's definitely something that I apply to parenting. And the other one, I think, is just you have to be courageous as a parent yourself. Like, you really got to show up and be vulnerable and trust yourself, trust you're going to make mistakes, and trust your kids a little bit more. I know we live in different times now, but one of the things I loved about my upbringing is my parents gave my brother and I a lot of freedom to explore and work out stuff ourselves. And I think it's still really important to do that as a parent.
That's right, because you so badly want to protect them and wrap them up, don't you? I mean, just recently, when you say that, I had an experience with one of my kids where they were feeling so awful, and I just wanted to burst into tears, thinking, I want to fix this for you. I don't want you to be in that pain. And so but then I realized, you got to be strong. He can't see you crumble. Like, he needs to face this. He needs strategies. You need to share some ideas with him, and he needs to walk back in and feel like there's not mummy coming to save him and rescue him, which I understand when parents want to do that, because it's heartbreaking to see your kid not coping.
It's so hard. I sometimes share this story. I don't know if we've got time. I do talk a lot, as you know, Ange.
No, we've got it.
When our boys were starting school, I travelled a lot for my job, and they were used to me being away. So Wes and I just made this assumption that Liam and Charlie would be fine when they started primary school, because they're used to being away from us, and they had each other. And the first couple of days at primary school were not so great, actually. So when we went to school, Charlie, who we thought would be okay, he's probably going to, hopefully doesn't hear this, because I get in trouble for sharing these stories, but Charlie was an absolute mess. So he was the kid, when you walk out of the room, he was the kid that was grabbing onto your leg and bawling your eyes out. And when you spoke about that, you just want to fix it for them. I just wanted to take him home with me and say, it's okay, you never have to go back to school again. It was horrible, but the teachers were like, go, just go. Just go. And when I'd drive away, I'd bawl my eyes out. And I remember one day just going home and having a cup of tea, thinking, you know what, they're right. You do have to just go, and you do have to let them sort it out themselves. But I also had thinking in my mind, this is really annoying, because every time I drop him off at school, it's an extra 30 minutes before I can get to work and get to a meeting. So we're going to have to fix this problem. So I decided later that on that weekend, somehow I was going to broach the subject with Charlie, who was 6 at the time. And I remember we were going to get some fish and chips, and we're driving along, and it was just him and I thought, beautiful, I'm going to ask him. So I said to him, Charlie, this whole school thing's not really, it's not the way that I thought it was going to be. And he's like, no, it's not. And I said, can you, tell me about it? What's going on? He's like, oh, I don't know. You always get that from kids. I don't know, no, nothing. And then I just went silent. And about a minute later, he said to me, well, you know what, Mum, it's just scarier than I thought it would be. The kids are so much bigger. I just didn't think it would be like this. And I said, okay, well, that makes sense. And, so what are we going to do, though? Because we need to come up with a strategy. And he said, I don't know. And I'm driving along thinking, well, I have no idea what we're going to do, other than, just kept going here. Anyway, again, about a couple of minutes later, he said, Mum, I think I know what we could do. One of the things that really upsets me is when I see you walk away. So how about on Monday morning, I go in, I'll put my school, Charlie's very detailed, I'll put my school bag in, and I'll walk outside, I'll line up. I want you to stay there and watch me go into the classroom, because if you watch me walk away, I think I'll be okay. And I said, all right. well, let's do that. So we rocked up on the Monday, and I stood there, and he went. I've actually got a photo of it. We went to the front of the line. He was at the front of the line, ready to go. Mr. Soldani, who was the principal at the time, came past and high-fived him, and I thought, Mr. Soldani, you don't understand how brilliant that was. Perfect timing. And Charlie went in, and he didn't look back from that day. On. And I share that with people. Well, I usually share that with leaders, because I just say to them, if a 6-year-old can work out his own problems, so can adults. So as a parent, don't ever underestimate your kid's ability to solve a problem. They might not know in the moment, but give them that space. And that was just I was just clutching at straws, and it all kind of happened by default. But it was such a great lesson for us as parents, and to share.
That is brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. I'm absolutely going to take that on board. Now, before we wind up, Kylie, do you have a favourite quote or mantra that you'd like to share with us? I'm putting you on the spot here.
You are. Well, my favourite quote is "Be the change you wish to see." I know, yeah, Gandhi, yeah. Love that.
I love that, absolutely. And do you have a mantra you live by?
I do. And it's everything I have is within me right now. So when I'm feeling nervous, or I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed, or I've lost something, or I can't find my way, everything I have is within me right now. I've got this. And I just keep saying it, and somehow it works out for me.
Yeah. So you actually have to center yourself, and even if close your eyes, and potentially what you're looking for will come up in your inner world, right? Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. Have you got a favorite book, or any great self-help book that you think everyone should read?
Well, I've got a few, as you can see, because I know. Yeah, look, probably makes me look a bit smarter than what I am, Ange. But I love reading. One of my favourite books is Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. I've got a Brené crush. I love Brené. But I've recently just read this book called Untamed by a woman called Glennon Doyle, and it's about becoming free and to stop pleasing. And I think that's a big thing that happens for all of us, but particularly with women. We, get caught up in that pleasing thing all the time. And it's really heartfelt. She shares a lot of her own stories. There's such good messages in it. I love it. I've read it and I want to read it again. Can't get enough of it.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, Untamed.
By who?
Glennon Doyle.
Glennon Doyle, Untamed by Glennon Doyle. And I presume the Fearless Way book is coming out sometime soon in the near future?
It will be. It will be. Well, you can hold me to account for that. I have started it, but
Yeah.
Yes. That's the dream. That's the dream.
It'll happen. And you have to hold me accountable to, actually, I need to just come book in with you for a session with my midlife career change, whatever it's going to be. Who knows? So thank you so much, Kylie. Very inspiring. And I am going to do something today that scares me a little bit because of you. Not sure what that is yet. Maybe look inside my cupboards and get scared by the state of them. That'll be a good start. Thank you so much. And where can people find you? A website?
Yes, so website thefearlessway.com.au, and also on Facebook and Instagram at The Fearless Way, and LinkedIn, if anyone goes onto LinkedIn.
You can have private sessions with you via Zoom?
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of private sessions via Zoom at the moment, and actually even running workshops via Zoom. So I've got 26 people in a workshop next week via Zoom. So yeah.
Okay, so they can find that all on your website. So ladies and gentlemen, although you've got a passion for ladies and their midlife changes, so everyone jump on board with Kylie, The Fearless Way. Thank you so much for joining us. Lovely to see your beautiful smiling face.
Thank you, beautiful Angie.
Bye-bye. If you enjoyed that video, don't forget to like and subscribe so that we can keep you up to date with all our latest content.